Hey everyone, Jordan from Condo here. Today I wanted to show you a presentation I go through with clients often to show all of the up and coming developments in South Etobicoke, or all of the mid to high rise up and coming. Now obviously as a neighborhood shifts and redevelops, now some of these development plans change, some of them get canceled, and of course new ones are added all of the time. But this is, as of today, a pretty up-to-date, accurate analysis of what's coming. I'm just going to go through these one at a time. We have 29 developments to get through, so I'm not going to focus on the details of any given development too much. But this is a good starter to give you an idea of all of the redevelopment that's coming to our neighborhood. So the first one I want to focus on is Mirabella. Mirabella is located at Lakeshore and Windermere. It's actually one of my personal favorite developments. It's highlighted in red to show that it's already under construction. I've done my best to show the difference between proposed, approved, and something that is actually already under construction. I'm sure I've mislabeled some of them, but for the most part, most of these are going to go through, or likely to go through. There may be changes to the development applications, but most of these are by notable developers. I've left out some of the minor small scale stuff, and I've focused on all of the mid to high rise that are far more likely to actually go through. So Mirabella is already under construction. It's by a developer I'm very fond of, Diamante, great developer, very reputable developer, but a very small developer, family team. They're building this year, Lakeshore and Windermere. It's 38 stories, 2 buildings. Looks somewhat like this. If you were on Lakeshore looking north, you can see the Park Lake buildings to the right of it. These are already existing. 750 units in total and 3,000 square feet of retail space. This one's taking occupancy in January of 2022. Directly beside it, we have a proposal from Marlin Spring. So Marlin Spring does a lot in Etobicoke. They have a lot of land. They have a lot of proposals. This is one of them. If you're familiar with the neighborhood, you know that plot of land. But there's a notice up currently. This is the approval. This is what they're going for. 607 units, a 26 and a 21 story building. Hard to believe they're going to fit all that on that plot of land, but I assure you they will. Southport Square is just north of the NXT buildings. Okay, so this is Queensway and this is Windermere. This is Southport Square. It's by the State Building Group, 29 and 26 stories. This one's 641 units. The big ticket item with this one is 35,000 square foot of retail space. So if you live in this neighborhood, you'll know that one thing we are lacking is retail, with the exception of the Sobeys Plaza down here. We don't really have a whole lot of retail, so this will be nice when this finally goes through. Okay, moving to a couple of under construction developments. So what we're looking at here, this is the Humber Bay Shores condo cluster. You can see Eau de Soleil currently under construction. They're actually taking occupancy now. They're complete now, but this some outdated satellite imagery. So we're going to focus on Water's Edge first. Water's Edge is right here. It's currently a hole in the ground a lot deeper than that. I believe they've reached the bottom. I think they've started shoring already. This one's already under construction. It's 56 units, or 56 stories rather. It's 600 units, and it's by Conservatory Group. This right here is Vita 1 and 2. So Vita 1 will be set further back. This is Vita 1, and then Vita 2 will be closer to the water, and this is Vita 2. So altogether, we're looking at about 600 units. Vita 1, closer to Lakeshore, is 53 stories, and Vita 2 is 16 stories, and that's closer to Marine Parade here. Both of these are under construction. Vita 1, I think, just reached like floor 20 or 21. And Vita 2 is now approaching grade. Okay, 42 Park Lawn. So in between the Key West building here and the South Beach building here, you actually have a plot of land. If you're familiar, if you drive down Park Lawn, you've seen this plot of land many times. Believe it or not, it's large enough to fit a condo building. It's owned, the plot of land is owned and has been zoned by Amexon, which is the same developer that did South Beach, which is arguably some of the nicest building. It's a shame they're so far from the lake, because there's probably the nicest buildings in the Humber Bay area. But that plot of land, it's zoned, it's approved, so eventually something's going to be built there. Whether it's a Amexon or another developer, sold to another developer to profit, we'll see in a later date. But believe it or not, 41 stories, there's going to be another condo building there. This is the big ticket one, so the Christie Site. The Christie Site is heavily debated in the Humber Bay community. The community is not happy about this one. This one made a lot of headlines this year. I personally am super happy about it. First Capital is a massive developer. They're a publicly traded company. They're willing to bring, they're willing to bring a GO station to the neighborhood, which we need desperately. The Mimico GO is too far, not easily accessible, and this is such a car-dependent community currently. But I think pretty much any cost to pay for that GO station is worth it. That aside, this is what it's going to look like. So it's an absolute ton of development. We're looking at 15 towers ranging from 22 to 71 stories, a GO station, 460,000 square feet of retail space to give you, a point of perspective there. That's about the size of shops at Don Mills. 450,000 square feet of commercial, which is about enough room for 4,000 to 5,000 jobs, 7,446 condo units, and a hotel. Now, this particular development, this approval, this proposed plan is going to shift and change dramatically as the community fights back. And, there's going to be a lot of give and take. They're ultimately probably not going to end up with 7,500 condo units. It's going to land somewhere between there and what the community wants. Hopefully we get to retain that GO station. That GO station is ultimately, ideally, a part of the plan. But time will tell. Something is absolutely getting built there. I like the proposal. I think it's a lot of density. They could probably back down a little bit on the density, but I'm sure they're asking for a little bit more than they know that they're going to get ultimately. So we'll see. This is kind of the proposed site plan. This would be Park Lawn here, and this would be Lakeshore there. A couple of renderings I'll scroll through here, and I'll put links to all of these developments in the description in the comment section below so that you can go take a closer look. Phoenix is under construction. So Phoenix is over here on Manitoba. It's by Empire. It's a relatively simple build, elegant build. Empire, obviously the same guys who did Eau de Soleil, very reputable developer, currently under construction. You're looking at just under 500 units. It's a 29-story building plus an 11-story podium. Grand Manitoba Park, this is where all your park levies go. So when you're buying a pre-construction condo, you're looking at your statement of adjustments and you're looking at all of your park levies. Where does that money go? Well, here's where the city spends it. So this is Grand Avenue Park. This is city plan. It's got a field, playground, multi-use court, and an off-leash dog area. So it's going to be here, Manitoba and Grand Ave. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out quickly before I get into Grand Park Village here and just show you this area. So this is where the Mimico GO station is. Okay, so this is a perfect area for density. Now the downside is this area is a lot of low-rise housing, so of course the community is going to be severely opposed, and I understand that. These buildings are going to have a ton of density, a ton of traffic, and a ton of shadows, frankly. But this is a great area for density. The truth of the matter is we need the density. The current population of the GTA is 6.8 million, and we're projected to get to 10.7 million by 2046. Toronto alone, we're currently at 2.9, and the number is 4.3. So we're going from 2.9 million to 4.3 million in the span of now to 2046. So the density has to go somewhere. In my opinion, along a GO station is a perfect place for density. So all of this land here is spoken for. We have proposals and approvals all along this area. The first one, and maybe the most interesting one, is Grand Park Village by Freed. So this one was actually supposed to start selling right about now. Obviously, due to the COVID situation, this is being put off a little bit. We're probably going to look at sales starting at Grand Park Village. I'm hoping this year, but anywhere between this year and next year. This one's Freed. If you're familiar with Freed, they've built a lot of cool product in and around Toronto. Their product always has this sort of unique flair to it. This is what the proposal looks like. This is a ground floor render. So you're looking at 16 stories, 23 stories, 25 stories, and 32 stories. 1,800 units in total at GPV. It's this plot of land here, so it kind of runs through Audley and Grand Ave all through here. Next up to the north, we have 25 Audley. Now this is an unknown developer. It looks like a flip property to me. They've zoned it, approved it. It looks like it's just land that they're going to resell, probably to Van Dyke, maybe to Freed. This is what the building looks like. And again, we don't know who the developer is ultimately going to be on that. Directly beside that, here we have 23 Buckingham. This is a Van Dyke project. It's 725 units in total. 37 stories, 26 stories, and 12 stories. This is what the rendering looks like. This building also has some ground floor retail. Right here, directly beside, so this is the Mimico GO. Directly beside it, we have two projects. The first one we're going to focus on is 39 Newcastle. This is also a Van Dyke project. It's 833 units. I can't remember who's owned this initially, what developer it was, but it's been sold to Van Dyke. 36 units, 36 stories, 30 stories, and a 22-story building, so 3 buildings in total, and another 800 units here. Directly beside that, we have On the Go. This is Van Dyke as well. So it's two buildings in total, 44 and 29 stories, 687 units. It has office and retail space, and the most exciting thing about this development is obviously you have direct access to the Mimico Go. It's also a uniquely proposed building. We'll see what this ultimately ends up looking like. So Beeline, we're going all the way over to Browns and almost Lakeshore. So sort of a weird area. But this is a relatively small scale development, 6 stories, 81 units. It's done by Royal Park Homes. This one's already under construction and mostly sold out, about 95% sold out. Okay, now we're going to change things up. We're going to go to the Queensway. So still South Etobicoke, in my opinion. I'll do another video later for North Etobicoke, or I guess you'd call it Central Etobicoke. Kipling Station, Islington Station and stuff. There's just so much. There's so much coming in Etobicoke that I've got to break these down into different neighborhoods. So the first one we're going to focus on, we're going to kind of go, see if I can get, no, okay. We're going to kind of go west to east here. So this is, where are we? Royal York. So, okay, we're at Kipling and Queensway. This is 1306, the Queensway. This is by King Site. This is a relatively recent proposal. Very recent proposal. 31 stories, 24 stories, and 12-story building. Looks something like this. This would be the Queensway here. You're looking at 845 units. Okay, so hop back a little bit where the Staples is. So to the north side of Sherway Gardens, where the Staples, HomeSense Plaza is, you've got 1750 the Queensway. This is an old proposal. Ultimately, I think you're going to see a lot of change in this area, sort of like we've seen around Square One, like we're seeing around Yorkdale. Sherway inevitably is going to go through the same mall living community, mall residence transformation that a lot of malls are going through in Toronto. This is the first proposal, so it's this whole block of land here that I've highlighted in yellow. It's a ton of commercial, obviously, to replace the commercial that's already existing, but it also has a hotel and condo buildings. So 904 condo units in total, spread across 3 27-story buildings, and there's 500,000 square feet in office space, as well as roughly 365,000 square foot of retail. So roughly the same amount of retail that's already there. They're replacing all of that, and then they're adding on the office, the hotel, and of course the condo residence. I haven't seen movement on that proposal in a while, so that one could be pretty far out. So the Taylor, this is another Marlin Spring, okay? This is right by the Mandarin on the Queensway. These are the IQ condos. This is a 12-story building, 159 units, very simple building. A lot of stuff we're seeing on the Queensway is like this, is these nice boutique buildings, which I think are great for the Queensway. It's not a ton of density, but the Queensway can support definitely some density. It's a great area for some of this. And that's what we're seeing a lot of, is this lower rise stuff. There's mid to low rise stuff. Closer to the Gardner, down Zora behind IQ, we've got 36 Zora. So this is by Altry. It's 35 stories, 460 units. This building is already under construction. My understanding is they broke ground, or at least they had the groundbreaking ceremony. I don't know how far along they are. I don't think very far at all, but they're already under construction and they're almost entirely sold out. They're down to the last 2 or 3 units. They sold incredibly quickly. This was a very hot condo project, which is indicative of obviously what's going to come, or what's coming for the next phases at IQ, which is directly to the east here. So IQ condos has a third phase. So this here in the satellite image is just all dirt and gravel, but it's currently a park. It's a park that's going to separate IQ Phase 2 from IQ Phase 3. So this is a Remington project. It's 915 units in total, 42 stories, 25 stories, and 26 stories. And it looks something like that. And then one plot of land further to the east, we have 2 St. Lawrence. So this one is 558 units. This one's approved, but again, this proposal is relatively early. So in terms of, more in-depth renderings, more detailed renderings. It'll be a while before we see those. Moving back to the Queensway and St. Lawrence, you have 1045 the Queensway, which is another Marlin Spring building. Again, sort of a boutique 12-story mid-rise building, 310 units. Jumping over to 935 the Queensway. Here we have a building proposed by Mattamy. Mattamy's done a ton in Etobicoke, specifically in the Humber Bay Shores community. This one's 16 stories, 227 units. It's actually a pretty interesting looking rendering. It's proposed. They don't have the density approval, but I'm sure Mattamy, I'm sure they're going to get it. It's Mattamy. They wouldn't be applying for something they didn't think they were going to get. Okay, so in front of the Queensway, this is a big one. RioCan has obviously all this land. So 1001 the Queensway, right at Queensway in Islington. Oops, let's go back to that. 1001 the Queensway. So this is 545 units in total. Very minimalist building. Has ground floor retail as well. So sort of where the Kelsey's, Milestone, Scotiabank is, right at the front of the Queensway Cineplex. This is the proposal to replace all of that. It's a number of buildings, 17 stories, 10 stories, 10 stories, and 9 stories, 545 units in total. We have 880 the Queensway by Queenswell. Same guys who did Cube condos. So this is 8 stories, 100 units. Where the motel was. 859 the Queensway. This one's currently under construction. They're actually moving really quickly. They, believe it or not, they don't have density approval. They're trying to get a height addition, but currently it's 14 stories, 238 units. It's by First Avenue and Latch. Queensway Park. So this is Queensway, right by the Queensway Park. This is looking, south to north. This one's already under construction, 9 stories. It's by Urban Capital, a very reputable developer in Toronto. 172 units, and this one is almost entirely sold out. It's only a handful of units left here. Reina Condos by Urban Capital. So this one hit the news this year. Their renderings are relatively early. They were initially going to be a townhome complex, but they're now going to be an 8-story mid-rise boutique building. This is the first all-women's development team in Toronto, as I understand it, at least. This one, I was hoping this one was going to launch this year, but I'm not sure if it is. They already have a sales center under construction, but obviously due to COVID, who knows when they're actually going to launch sales. Last but certainly not least, we have Backyard Neighborhood. So Backyard Neighborhood is sort of tucked away near the Humber River. If you're familiar with the neighborhood, you know where it is. The first phase is actually already complete. Here's a picture of it here. There's a number of 3 phases in total, 10 stories, 8 stories, and 7 stories, and 505 units in total. Like I said, tucked away into a low-rise residential area. So that's it for the most part. Like I said, I've left out some of the more minor developments. I'm going to try to add to these videos over time and get more detail, but I don't even know how long we've run here, but I'm sure it's been a while. If you have any questions about specific developments, about specific inventory, where things stand, what's coming, just shoot me an email. I'm happy to walk you through these developments in more detail. Obviously there's a lot coming. It's hard to keep up to date with all of the stuff that's coming. The next video I'll do will be on the Islington, Kipling Station area, because there's a ton of redevelopment coming there as well. But yeah, I hope this helped. Hope this helps give you a little bit of context to all of the redevelopment that's coming to Etobicoke. I personally think it's great. At the end of the day, our population is exploding. We need housing for these people. We need affordable housing specifically, and that's condos, right? It's not low rise. The average low rise price in the Mimico area is like 1.1, 1.2. So this is great. This is a great spot for density. I really do hope we get that GO station at Park Lawn. But with everything that's up and coming, this density